Okay.
All right. So, hello, I'm Brian,
I'm Carmell.
and we're going to tell you a bit of our story.
Do it.
So Carmell and I met while we were both on staff with Youth with a Mission, YWAM, in Australia. And I think at first, kind of the funny part about this is that Carmell went and did a discipleship training school, which is about 6 months, and then went home to finish college in Canada. You're Canadian.
I'm Canadian.
Yeah, outside Vancouver region.
Okay.
And so she went and did her school, went home. And then when she went home, I went and did my discipleship training school, same base, same location, and went home. So we never met the first time. This is like our When Harry Met Sally story kind of thing. Sorry, I saw the couch. I love it. So we never met. First times we both went to Australia, and then she went back. She finished school and then went back on to staff. And I was home for a year, and there's a chance I was maybe going to get a job at Calvary and with the high school group at the time, and was kind of waiting on that, and that didn't work out. Not the right timing. And so I ended up deciding I'm going to go back and join staff with YWAM. And so it was a year later, and I went back to join staff, and it was in January 2004?
Don't.
Something like that. Let's just age us too much. We were young and sprightly and whatever else. So when I went back to join staff, Carmell had gone home for this conference thing, and she was gone for a month or something. So I'm getting established on the base, and so we keep missing each other. And one day we had a staff website with staff profiles. And
this is pre-Facebook.
It was
so
now you really aged
Facebook-ish.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So it was during MySpace time. MySpace was a thing. So we had a similar thing, but it was like a pre-Facebook staff profiles. And I was kind of perusing the staff profiles. It was a large base. There's about 70, 80 on staff. So I was just kind of doing some research, single guy, whatever. Seeing who was out there, and I came across this profile of a girl named Carmell Weiser, and it was like a black and white photo of her on the train.
Oh gosh, we don't have to go into the details.
On the train, I think she was on a train track. No. She had a guitar over her shoulder, and she was kind of scandalously looking back a little bit.
Not
scandalously, but
pre-selfies, even digital cameras, I think. No, maybe we had digital cameras. We're not that old.
Yeah.
They were in color.
But she had a nice little look in her eye and black and white. And I was really drawn to her name, Carmell. And I was wondering if it was Carmell. I didn't know if it was
with the last name Weiser. Yeah.
I didn't know, but I was interested. And I later learned she was 100% German. So, that was that. But I was a little off there.
Well, and people had told me before you had come, this guy Brian, and I'd seen pictures of you from different people, and I was like, okay, let's get this Brian out here.
So I was out there, and then one day, so in my first internship, I worked in the accounting office with YWAM you had to just do different roles. So my first one was in accounting, and I'm in the accounting office, and then one day Carmell comes
there's this big window in the hallway. You open the main doors, and there's the window of the accounting office where Brian is sitting.
And so she walks by, and I'm like, she's back. And so I was first.
Yeah, we were both interested.
And as YWAM goes, they take relationships, getting into relationships, pretty seriously, because they don't want everybody dating everybody and breaking up and causing big issues on the base. That's
is that
part
a thing?
Of it.
Wait, really? They had those rules, or that was?
Yeah, I mean, it was we don't go haphazardly into a relationship, but really get to know someone, and you process it with your leaders.
I don't think you had to. I think we just decided to.
Okay, agree to disagree. No,
it's definitely
that was the culture. It was the culture.
Yeah.
That was the culture.
Okay,
so we did that, and for really the first 12 months. I think it was the first year we were friends.
Yeah.
And we'd go on coffee dates and hang out in group situations. And we'd be in groups, but would find ourselves having long conversations together, even apart from the group.
But I feel like we had a talk like 6 months in before we led outreach together. So that was fun to be able to do that.
We staffed a discipleship training school.
So I feel
and
like we
led
had a talk.
a 3-week outreach of a team of like 18
But didn't we
people.
have a talk before that school that we were leaders of, being like, we're interested, but let's
Maybe.
see
Yeah.
some sort of
it's a long time ago.
DTR. Yeah.
But on that outreach, that's significant, the outreach. So we led that, and it was for like 3 weeks. We were going into high schools and doing this like day-long youth high school program. And that was really cool. But on those 3 weeks, just kind of intense sleeping on church floors every night and moving 18 personalities around on a bus. You get to know one another. And that's when I really get to, I think, know Carmell and see a lot of the qualities that I just love in her. And to see her in stressful situations, to see her deal with people, even like confronting issues that come up. And I just saw strength in her and a wisdom and just godly character, which has always been so evident in you, and wanting to do the right thing, and a great listener. And we'll go on and on and on. So
It's our anniversary tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 15 years
15,
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So big day.
So we got to write some. See, you got to.
I'm practicing.
Some other things
I'm
for
practicing
the card.
my
I want
card.
other things.
My writing for the new things. 15 years. I got to come up with some new qualities and characteristics, but I do love those about her. So I don't know. That first year came to an end, is what I remember. And then I had to decide, was I going to stay on staff? I did a year-long internship. Mm-hmm. I had to commit for 2 more years or go home. And I remember, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's part of the culture. And I would also say that for me, it was a really healthy thing in our process to have people that knew us and loved us and supported us around us to speak into our lives and to say, yeah, this is what we see in you. This is what we see in her. And it put up guardrails. I think even for me, I had been in I dated quite a bit, like in my years leading up to that, and some in healthy relationships and some not. And so for me, being in that context, I think that was pretty structured and high accountability was like a really good foundation for us to just get to know each other as friends, and to kind of grow in that way with just some guardrails in place so that, So I appreciated that. Didn't always love it, but it was like, that was a healthy thing, I think, in our journey. So, where were we? So we should probably move forward.
Okay.
I think we ended up, you
Okay. So you ended up staying.
I ended up staying.
And then
2 more years.
I think we decided to just, I don't know.
That's when our
dating?
relationship officially started.
Okay. When you decided to stay, because I was staying for, I don't know. I think I'd committed to running a whole music school or something. So I was staying, and if you were leaving, then it's pretty much over.
Yeah.
But so we dated for like what? Dated officially for
close to another year.
Another year.
I would say about a year. And do we get to my 30th birthday?
Sure, yeah. So you got to tell some of the freakouts you had.
So I was a bit of a committophobe, I think. Okay, there's a lot of reasons. So my parents divorced when I was in college, and that was super out of nowhere and really painful. And so I think I had a lot of fear of just wanting to make sure when I got married that it was the right relationship. And
yeah, because they'd been married for 25 years or something. So you'd think what could go wrong at that point.
Right.
Obviously a lot.
Yeah. So that was definitely a fear for me. I think also we were in Australia in a totally different context and even within YWAM, it's just not normal kind of living. You're in a really specific context. And so.
Which they hate you saying.
Oh.
They hate it when you say, this is not normal life.
And it's great. And it serves, like, there's so many great things that we got out of our time in YWAM. But I think I also had the fear, we're not going to be here forever and we're going to go home, and she doesn't know any of my friends and I don't know any of her friends, and we don't know what life would look like outside of this, and even in a different country and potentially not in missions, or we didn't know. So there's a lot of unknowns, and this works here, but will it work? Will this travel? will this relationship travel? And so
let me give you props for 1 minute real quick.
Okay. I like this.
That we were dating for, like, officially dating for like a month when you went home. Is that right? Something like that.
Maybe
okay. Anyway,
less.
Maybe even less.
But we had known each other for a year, and we knew
yeah.
we were interested and wanted to be in a relationship.
Okay. And so he came home here. This is where he's from, to Westlake. And
for a visit.
You were going to go on a high school houseboats trip. Something like that. Anyway.
I don't remember that.
And then I don't know why I came up with the idea that he should go visit my parents up in Canada. He should get on a plane because he's on the continent, and I mean it's a long ways from Australia, and I might not get a chance to meet them if, like, we end up getting engaged or something. And so she's thinking, now's your chance, halfway around the world, fly up the coast to Vancouver, which he did
from LA, I did. Right?
You're giving yourself.
Sorry. Let me receive my adulation. Okay. So I did. I flew up to Vancouver and met her parents and her brother, and we golfed.
My best friend.
And, your best friend. I got grilled by her best friend on, like, a coffee date and stuff. We're still
loved him.
Good friends with him. So that was great, and got to meet them. Flew back home, and then
30th birthday.
So then, so we're in a relationship for about a year, but I'm having my doubts and all the things I talked about, and having trouble just getting to that point of, like, I'm certain I want to marry Carmell. And so my 30th birthday was coming up, and we had been on a rough patch, and our YWAM base was having this national conference at the base for that week, and it was going to be during my birthday. So the whole base was crazy with activity. And the night before my 30th birthday, we're just in the worst place we've been. And we basically, like, have a conversation that's like, this is over.
In so many ways.
So many
words, but
not in those.
That's not what you told me. I didn't think it was completely over, although you were
passive aggressive,
down in the depths of despair.
Yes. So, but it was not looking good. And then I woke up. All my Australian friends kidnapped me on my 30th birthday, like at 5:45 in the morning, and, like, zip tied my hands behind my back, blindfolded me, like, no shirt on, just a little pair of shorts, tied me to, loving guys, right? Tied me to, like, a street pole, like, lamp with a sign that said, like, honk, I'm 30 today, and left me, like, in the middle of the city. Doused me with a 5-gallon bucket of ice water. So that was fun. And and in that, it was so bizarre. They were actually just down the block, like half a block, hiding behind bushes. And then this, like, angelic voice of a plumber, like 78-year-old plumber or florist or something. He's like, all right, you've had your fun with him. Now let him go. Or something. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. And they, like, let me go. But, like, that was like a little bit of a traumatic experience. But it almost, like, woke me up in some way, this, like, ice water hitting me. And, like, it was just like, what's happening? So we go to lunch, most awkward lunch in the history of 30th birthdays. Yes. And her and I are like, we're supposed to go to lunch together today because it's my 30th. And
so we brought one of our Aussie friends.
Like,
and he's just, like, totally oblivious. He's just, like, in his own little world. Like, but it was, Good for us.
And then we went to a movie, and then they dropped me off, and she hands me this DVD that she had collaborated with my younger brother, Michael, from here. And they put together like a This Is Your Life, which none of you in Y are going to know what This Is Your Life is. But it was this old thing of, I don't even know what it is, but people talking about you. And so they threw a party for me here with all my friends. They interviewed everyone, and they did it in like an MTV. What was that show? Cribs, MTV Cribs style, where you walk around. Our friends had just moved into this really cool new house, and they're showing the rooms and this, but everybody was like sharing, and she had gotten people from Australia, filmed them, and sent the footage over. It was like professionally done, probably like an hour long. She just handed me that, and I went inside and watched it, and like was crying and like all this stuff, and it was emotional and cool and amazing, and showed just how amazing she was as well, putting all this together. And so that kind of snapped me out of my funk, and I'm like, what am I doing? This is an amazing woman. And so we went another few months, right?
Until the next
freak out. Anyway, long story short, I fly home again on, this is like a year
December.
later. Yeah.
No, it's not a year. It's like maybe 6 months later.
Okay.
Anyway,
I only went home twice, but I go home. I got to that point of like, I went with my friends who are married, and we talked, and I'm like, I need to come to this place of like getting over my fear of, could something go wrong? Yes. But do I love her? Yes. And can I see myself with her? Yes. This is what I love about her. And I'm like, I'm going ring shopping. I'm going to take an active step. I'm going to go look at engagement rings with my brother. And we did that. I found this like Canadian diamond that it was a diamond from Canada, and she's Canadian. And it's got this little like maple leaf that's etched into the diamond that you can't even see. It's so small, but if you had so it's kind of cool. She has a Canadian diamond.
I'm obviously wearing it all the time. But up until this point, like, we had not talked about marriage whatsoever. We hadn't said we love each other. We hadn't gone ring shopping, like nothing. What? You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, we never talked about the future. Really?
Right. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. So I was thinking about it. We were both thinking about it, but we hadn't verbalized marriage
because
I was like scared of marriage. So through that process, my brother looked at these rings. I go to lunch with them. Like, this is the right thing. I'm gonna ask Carmell to marry me. And we had this like moment of like staring into each other's eyes, like nodding. And I'm really close with my younger brother, and it was just like, this is right. And so I'm walk back. There's another story there, but I won't tell it. And so get the ring, called her parents. They knew, flew back to Australia. We got engaged.
Wait. Okay. So I'm at home, and I am sitting there. No, I'm sorry. I'm back in Australia, and he's gone. And I'm like, okay, if like, I think it was December, and I was thinking in my head, if things don't progress before the end of the year, I just got to be done, because I can't just keep going on this roller coaster. Are we going to be together? Are we not going to be together? And so I'm thinking ultimatum, basically, at this point, because we'd been friends and dating for 2 years.
Yep.
And it's in a microwave. Like, you're living together, you're working together, you're doing everything together. So it's almost like we'd known each other for double that. Just want to give that disclaimer.
That's good. I need to get my act together. And so I got my act together, I think, and more than my act together, but I really felt like this was right. This was what I wanted. This was of God. And so we got engaged.
Yeah. We planned a wedding from Australia for 5 months later in Canada.
Yes.
And here.
Right.
And then in Australia. It's a lot of parties, which was fun.
It was. And we had a great wedding, April 29th.
Yeah.
Up in Canada. It rained in the morning, and then it was It was cool. And
Anyway, we don't need to all the details of the day.
It's sage
okay.
and cappuccino colors.
But so he was freaking out before all this, and I had no commitment issues because my parents were together, and I'd always like had long-term dating relationships. It was never like, I don't know. I didn't do a lot of dating. But then like the moment when I started walking down the aisle is when I freaked out. And I was like, what am I doing? Can I really like commit to this for my whole life? Can I really be who he needs me to be for my whole life? And so. Yeah,
you went through a bit of a struggle, right?
I struggled then. And then even on our honeymoon, I had like a bit of a, I don't know if it's just like a downer. Is that common? You have downers after your wedding? But like I kind of went.
There's kind of a big build up to the wedding, I think, and then it happens. And maybe it's some of like,
yeah, maybe
there's such anticipation and adrenaline of this big event. Now it's over, and now it's back to like life. We went back to Australia on staff with YWAM and went into like we'd been planning this huge outreach for 2 years. The base had big evangelistic outreach around all the different towns in northern Queensland, North Queensland, and she was in a band that was playing as a part of the tour. And so I got to be like the Band-Aid, like roadie, sound mixing board guy. We'd go into high schools, they'd play and then say, come to the show tonight. And it was a big thing. So we traveled on the road like right after we got back from our honeymoon for like a couple months.
But even before that, like a week before our wedding, we were told something about like, I might not be able to come into the country. Like there's all this like sketchy
green card issues.
But we weren't even, I guess we were applying for a green card.
We ended up applying for you in Australia. And then you got it. But
that was stressful too. Yeah. We didn't know like if I could even get in the country from Canada. But
So then we went back to Australia, did that tour and felt like our time there was wrapping up, and we ended up deciding to move back here. Mm-hmm. And then got into kind of normal life. I was selling insurance for about a year.
I was working here.
And you're working here. We got our jobs on the same day.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember that. We carpooled. We had one car every day.
And then I started doing property management, and then the position at Calvary opened up with mission director. And we switched. I came here, and you was the property manager.
Yeah.
And then we've had 4 kids.
That part's just real quick.
We had twins, surprise twins for numbers 3 and 4. And so that was life. I'm skipping way quick.
Yeah, ahead. It's okay. 15 years.
But, Yeah, I think just on the kid front, for us, it's the hardest thing we've ever done. Mm-hmm. And
most stressful on a relationship.
Yes. Kids. And just, they're just.
This is an infomercial for having children.
We love them to death. Would never change not having them. All that. I think they're our greatest joy and our greatest hardship a lot of the times. And good things are normally hard. And so we've seen. I think the challenges of daily life with 4 kids and all that goes into it. Yeah. You want to talk any on that?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I remember talking with some YA girls when I led a small group, and we were talking about relationships. And, when you're in a relationship with somebody and you're not totally confident on who they are as a person, and like a relationship is hard enough with a really decent human being. But to actually get into a relationship with somebody who, I don't know, there's like something about them you can't put your finger on, or, whatever it is. I think that, like doing this with somebody that you totally respect and you totally love and you want to do life with, like it's hard enough doing that with that kind of a person, let alone someone that you're not totally sure about or
which one
has some character issues. You started out as the first one, then you morphed into no.
Right.
Well, during the freakouts, I'm trying to remember. I think that those were probably the times that I actually, like my relationship with God really became real. And I think it's in those desperate times when you just need God. Like there's so many, when your relationship is good, like, okay, we'll hang out, like we'll go to church, we'll do our quiet time, whatever it is. But then when you're like in the depths of despair, and I mean, I hate it too, because it's like, I don't want to only come to God when I'm in the depths of despair, but he shows up in such a cool way in those times. And I think that during those times, I actually got to realize or see God as like the perfect lover, the perfect father, like the perfect, all those things. I think that he really shows up in those moments. And that's what was really cool for me. Because I mean, it sucks to feel like you're broken up. And like, I mean, I've never felt so much like despair than when I've broken up with somebody. You hit that deep level. But I think that's just such an opportunity to deepen your relationship with God. And that's what happened for me. And then, I don't know, coming out of the honeymoon, I don't know. I think just going back into life in YWAM and just getting on with life just like somehow pulls me out of that. I don't know. It's so boring.
You're on I think going on that tour and all that was fun for you. Yeah,
it was fun for me. It was,
to do
what I wanted to do.
Yeah. I think, you had that moment, I think, after giving birth for the first time, even a few, you've had some down times as well, where those have been just seasons of hard, difficult life seasons where it's like postpartum depression stuff or anxiety. Yeah. And then I think even the rhythms and seasons of marriage over 15 years of our times where we're just tracking so well and enjoying our time with each other, enjoying our family and the season we're in. And then there's seasons that's like, this is hard. Yeah. This is really difficult. And we're going through seasons where we're not communicating and we're feeling like roommates.
You're just going side by side.
Right.
You're like not interacting. You're just like, how are you going to help me get through this? How are you going to deal with the children? How are you going to, you start like.
The pressures of responsibility and who's going to do what and how you interact with your kids and who's going to enforce what. And she's a bit more of an enforcer than me.
He's a bit more of a sleepy town.
I'm the fun dad, I like being the fun.
I care about their brain. I care about their development. I care about their health,
I want them to, So God has used both of us to help form their little personalities. We're both growing. And Carmell and I are similar in a lot of ways too. And we're not like very combustible personalities. We're kind of even keel. We're never really high, never really low.
We don't really fight that much. That's not a good thing. Like we have gone at it though.
Yeah, sure. We've had a few.
I've had a few.
We've had a few.
Very few.
It's very rare.
It's not, but the thing is that we both didn't learn that conflict is actually good.
Right.
We both grew up in families where we didn't see conflict, and that's not healthy.
Right.
It's better to experience conflict and know how to work that out.
Yep.
So
that can be a Achilles heel for our marriage is if we decide not to enter into the conflict and just keep traveling in our lanes.
But even in friendships, like I think that we can tend, or at least I can tend to think, oh, shoot, they're mad at me. Oh, I guess they're probably not going to want to be my friend anymore, which is not the case. Is that relationships need the conflict
and always. So to date, coming out of those times of pretty deep conflict has really been healing for us and brought us back in alignment. And
But you had never heard your parents
together.
fight until
Right.
they were
Yeah.
getting divorced.
Correct.
So, and I just never heard my parents fight.
Right. So that's a lot. We
Something
didn't
we
know
need to
how
work
to
on.
fight well. So we're learning. We're learning that.
I think when our first was born, she was born late. She was almost 10 pounds. She was like a fully formed human being, and she's had an opinion since the day she was born. And she was a very difficult baby. She wasn't like colicky, but she cried a lot. Luckily, just throughout the day, like through the nights, I feel like we got to sleep pretty well. But I remember when we were
We popped 2 exercise balls.
Yes, we did.
Her,
Bouncing her.
trying to get her to go to sleep.
We turned the fan on. I would like, shut the, like just like bouncing, trying to get this kid to sleep. Like it brings out the most anger you've ever felt in your entire life with this baby. But remember when we were in the hospital and they bring her to us and like we're supposed to feed, do all this stuff, and they're going to take her and they're like, what was her diaper like? And we're like, oh, that's our job. Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was like
I have a bad husband moment too. That's kind of funny about when Taylor was born. So she's born. I think was it all night or we went in first thing in the morning? But
that was it. She was born at like 8 or something.
It was late. It was a long process, long day, and we, they wash her, do all that. We spend time with her. And then we were like the first parents that were like, we're not going to give her the
Oh, we had all the ideas of what we were going to do.
Yeah, so
had a whole plan. Please follow our plan.
And so they take her away so that we can try and get some rest. But we wouldn't let the nurses give her a pacifier if she woke up to cry because there's a whole thing
Nipple
about
confusion.
that. Okay,
it's a thing.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it. But
It's not a thing. Nipple confusion is fine.
And so then they bring her back in. And anyway, at some point, I decide maybe it's better for me if I go home and get some sleep. Did you
hear your words? Maybe it's better for me. Well, yeah, it is better for you.
Because they had taken her back to the nursing station and Carmell was like getting some sleep. And I'm
my body freaked out. Remember, I went into I got a fever, and so they're checking on me.
This is gonna make my story sound
every hour,
worse.
every 2 hours, just like taking my temperature. Yeah.
Yeah, but then your temperature came down, and it did, and they taken Sayla to the nursing station to get some rest. And I was looking at the clock, and I think it was about 11, and I was thinking, maybe if I go home and get some rest, then
was this the first night or the second night?
I think it's it
might go better for you if you say it's the second night.
Maybe it was the second night. Let's hope. So I start to I'm just going to go home, get some rest, and I'll be back tomorrow, and we can do this. And I'm just freaking out from like all this creature that's just requiring so much attention.
Yeah, and I'm freaking out on the inside. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I start putting on my clothes. And I'm like, okay, I'll see you in the morning. And then I'm like leaving, feeling guilty. And then I go by the nursing station. I see Sayla, and they're like screaming.
They had like a radio blasting in her ear to try
and get her to like calm. And so I went in, got her. Did the walk of shame back to the room with her.
I was so relieved.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe you left me to do that by myself.
I didn't. I ended up not doing that. So I stayed for the rest of the night. And, so that was that. And then...
but I do remember going home and being in our house and like crying and like freaking out a little bit. But I feel like it brought this like new bond between us even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like it was a whole new experience that we're in together, doing it together.
For sure. 4 times.
4 times.
Yeah.
Yes, the last time with 2 little tiny babies.
Yep. So I helped feed all the twins the entire time after they were born, and cried. Like, I actually cried physical tears one time, like, because it's really hard to wake up at 10, 1, 4, and 7.
Whoa, you still remember
Still remember the feeding schedule because they were really small, so I had to feed them every 3 hours or something.
That's pretty normal, but yeah.
And then get up and go to work, and did that for several months. And so that was a challenge as well. So kids are a challenge, everyone.
Yeah, very much.
Public service announcement. And and we love them. And I think just the beauty too for us has just been memories that we've been able to make through the years with our kids, and camping and traveling together and serving here at Calvary, and getting to watch our kids grow up in here, and now serving with like special abilities, Fresh Market has all been like fun times together as a family that we've gotten to do, and making those memories along the way. It's been pretty cool.
So the first time we took the twins to the doctor, you're supposed to take your baby to the doctor like after like the first week to see if they're like gaining weight. And so the first time we take the twins, and we have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old and then newborn twins. And we got the minivan because we had to do that because you need those sliding doors, put those babies in. And so we were on the road with all of those people in our minivan, driving to the doctor. And our oldest says, "Where's Hudson?" That's one of the twins. And he was not in the car.
And I may have forgotten. I
don't know who forgot, but
yeah. So we did the screechy wheel, like U-turn
off the freeway.
Got back on the other on ramp, back up the freeway, off, back to the house, opened the garage door, and he was sound asleep on the floor of the garage in his like snap and go thing. So
he was safe.
None the wears. So that was a fun little adventure. We've had a few others, but we don't need to share all of our
terrible parenting
secrets.
But I do remember getting married feeling like, oh man, I feel like I have less time to read my Bible. I feel like I have less time to pray. I feel like I have less time to like be intentional, if you will, about that. Mm-hmm. Do you remember feeling that way or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think through our journey back in the good old days of Australia, and we would get up and go do we were doing a Bible study together on Wednesday mornings, doing coffee. Like each week we'd go read the Bible together and like talk about it.
It's just an excuse to hang out, really, let's be honest. Under the guise of spirituality. I mean,
maybe for her. I can't speak to her motivations. I was excited
God
about.
Used it, but
I was excited about growing together spiritually.
I don't think you were excited about getting up early. I think you were not so excited about that, actually.
But I think through those years that we did have these moments of doing ministry alongside one another, which I think was really cool, and getting to see each other's kind of wiring and gifts when it came on the ministry front, praying together, those types of things. I think since we've been here, we don't do a once a week Bible study together.
How about once a year?
Yeah.
Should we do an annual?
And it's now turned more conversational, probably, into what we've been reading. Yeah. And we don't pray as much as we should together, but we've had some significant prayer times. Yeah. I'll tell one other story that was a great moment for us, and just support from Carmell. I was preaching at Calvary a couple of years ago and preached on a Saturday night and did not feel like it went well. I've told this story in services since then, but and was trying to correct it and spent my entire night like never slept 1 minute. Ended up having one of those nightmare nights where trying to fix it and my head's going and I'm trying to sleep and get up and back and forth all night. Got like nauseous, like the whole thing, because I got almost into like a panic attack over it, where I just could not sleep. And now I'm going to have to get up and go into the main worship center for 9/11 and do this message. My notes were all a mess by that point and the whole thing. And so I like set my alarm, which I never went to sleep, but it goes off and it's like Green Mile time. I'm walking it was just like going to my death. I started having like, maybe like when I was feeling nauseous, I'm like, oh, I have the flu. Hopefully I have the flu and I can't do it and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't. And you start having all these bad thoughts. So I get up and Carmell just senses my stress and all that. And she just prayed. I remember you praying for me, and like we were still laying in bed, but she just prayed it over me and really sensed through that prayer, like God give me a different peace and just saying, okay, here we go. We're going to go do this and rely on God. And then she sitting in the front row or second row, whatever. And again, she told me as I was walking up that she felt like God was like
it's like a big blanket, like wrapped around
around me.
God.
And really, this is just a huge testimony piece. And this was right before the Woolsey Hill fires and all that, the weekend before.
Oh, right, yeah.
And but I remember like literally walking up, going, "Wow, this is going to be a nightmare," and like taking this deep breath and turning around and just feeling this absolute and complete calm like come over me and just a clarity of mind. And as I began to speak, it was just like, here we go. And like really sensing God just speak through me and bring peace in that moment, and a really cool thing. And that was kind of a cool moment. And I just so felt her support during that. And that was a really special moment for us.
Well, I think you just gave me all your stress because I was just stressed out in the front row, like watching you, like, oh, don't embarrass us.
Right.
But okay, I have a question for you. So after we had the twins, my body like freaked out and my body made no milk, and I ended up getting postpartum anxiety. And I ended up getting on medication, which I had to be on for a year, which was a huge lifesaver. And I would totally recommend it to anybody. But I don't even know how that was for you. Like, what is that like to go through like a mental health, not crisis, but like go through mental health issues with your partner?
So how would I answer that? One, I think it sounds terrible, but we were kind of navigating crisis. Just the whole thing felt like a crisis.
It was crisis
with
management.
with the twins and this new reality. And we had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I wish I could have like some definitive answer for you, because those first 6 months just felt like kind of a war zone in itself. And I knew that you were in a deeper place, like, or having more anxiety, especially related to those things. But I remember at the same, right, being, this is just stress. I just chalked it up to, this is a very stressful time. And maybe you were even feeling it deeper than I knew that you were feeling it. But the whole thing feels like a very 6 months of just, wow, war zone on a lot of frames. And then you kind of perked out of it. That's such a terrible word, perked up. You perked up. You got your stuff together.
I just chose joy and went forward with the Lord. Well, with reality, like once the medication kicked in, like it allowed me to have a normal thought processes that wasn't like OCD thoughts, basically based upon anxious thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But what was I going to say? Something about like communication. because, like we said, we're not great at conflict, and I think that we're not always great at communication either. And so, like in that moment, is an example, or even like when we're parenting, when you're not communicating, you're almost just like making assumptions about the other person. And when you're in a crisis situation, when you have like these 4 tiny children, and you almost don't have a spare like space, you don't have any space in your brain to even like reach out to the other person. Like somehow we've been able to navigate those two. Obviously not very good all the time, but
yeah.
What am I trying to say in that? I'm trying to say the cliche that communication is key, but I don't think that we figured it out very good.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think communication is always key, and when we do it well, or when we enter into it and get in those places, there's no place we'd rather be in our relationship.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying too is that like if you're not figuring out communication when you don't have the extra stresses of kids, I mean, jobs can be stressful too, but like specifically other people depending on you, then it's not going to get better from there. It's only going to get harder. And almost like I feel like we have to go out on dates to really get a sense of what's going on inside of us. Because you just, like when you're dating, you're like hanging out and you're like trying to get to know them. So you're asking questions. But when you've been together for 15 years and you do know that person really well, we almost lose like what the day-to-day inner workings of like what's going on inside of your head. What are you learning? What you're reading? What are you processing?
Yeah. And I think it breaks us out of just the routine of what we have to do to accomplish every day to survive.
Yeah. To make it to bedtime.
To make it to bedtime and have
their bedtime.
Their bedtime, when not our time.
Life really begins for us. Yeah. For half an hour.
So even over the past year and over quarantine, we kind of started we were going through a book and called 8 Dates, and we would read a chapter and go and talk on that topic. And those were like, it's been really good to have those and to spend 2.5 hours just sitting in front of each other, talking and sharing. And so those are just always super healthy for us and great. And finding that you have other things to talk about other than the kids, which is always great. And I think even in our like faith journey together, I think, again, common theme here, but kids end up playing a huge role in how it shapes our journey and like our discipleship of our kids, and how we're trying to come alongside them in the journey and introduce them to God, and what prayer looks like for us as a family, or those moments of devotions that we're doing with the kids, before breakfast.
Not that often. We're not that family.
We're like, Carmell has
I grew up in that family, so I have a little bit of, family devotions. Okay.
Yeah. So we've had some of that, but I think part of just faith journey has been with our kids too, and how are we teaching them? For me, I just think how our foundation that we started our relationship in, that was based in God and pursuing Jesus individually and together, and having a sense of God calling us into something more than just life, and being part, in missions, and then and opportunities just to serve together and grow together and learn about God together. In that process, I think formed us into a unit, like moving forward together. That's like, this is us, and we're committed to this process of being together, loving God, loving one another, and journeying together. And so that's been our foundation from the start. And I think we didn't I do think we had a lot of like there was a lot of healthy elements to our relationship that was not like mired in a lot of like
past relationships
stuff, I think we learned how to ask for forgiveness from each other. I think we still do that well. I think when we mess up, we go to each other and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and do you forgive me? And I think that's always a hugely powerful piece. And I think both of us do that. Like, I think that's a huge part of relationships is being able to understand where you've hurt the other person and having enough like humility to say I was wrong. And so I think we've done that well through the years.
I think that like when you're dating and maybe even like the first couple of years of your marriage, you can almost still have your best foot forward. But then like when your spouse sees you yell at your kids or like just be a nasty human being, like that can be embarrassing too. And like that shapes you, like that irons out the rough edges too, to have that person, it's like an accountability thing.
It's totally, like marriage is an accountability thing. It really is, because you're together. Like I'm never alone anymore. The only time I'm just never, there's times where I'll come home from work and they're out somewhere and I'm like, I have like 15 minutes alone.
It's true.
Like,
it's just,
So just proximity wise, you're together a lot.
There's
always
someone there.
Your biz. And I have a deeper sense than just like you're there, but I feel there's a moral accountability and a sense of I'm I don't want to, how do I say that? I want to be faithful to you in my thoughts and my actions and all those types of things. And so if I get tempted on different fronts, it's like, no, I have a wife that I love. And so there's just that, the accountability that comes into that is kind of leads to some good, even boundaries and stuff where if you're just solo and just going wherever you want, doing whatever you want, and not really having to think about another person, right?
Yeah.
Marriage makes you have to stop and go, am I going to prefer myself today? Or am I going to prefer my spouse and my kids? And am I going to die to what desires am I going to die to today? And there's times where like, no, I'm going to do this.
Totally. And that's the first step is the hardest step, to be like, no, I want to do this. But then to like take that second step and be like, no, I really love this person. I really respect this person. I would hate to hurt them. Like to get to that place and to have somebody. And I think that forgiveness thing is key too. And this comes back to like what I was saying before. Like it's hard enough to have a marriage with somebody who will be humble, will ask for forgiveness, where, there's times where I can be like, oh, I can think the worst of him. But if I think the best of him, like that's who he is. It's not that worst person. But can we imagine being married to the person who was that worst? Right. I mean, I'm obviously not, but to know that this person will come back to me in humility, I think is huge. Right. Like it makes you feel safe too. Yeah. That like I can fully be myself too, because they're trustworthy. But one thing, did you have to say something about that? One thing that I miss from before kids and all that is doing ministry together, because that was like a foundational part of our marriage. And then this past year, the kids and I have been doing Fresh Market here and there when we can with Brian. And it was like so cool for me to see you in your job and like what you do, because I don't get to see that very often. And it's
fun having you guys.
I know. I miss.
And they're doing Buddy Break. Carmell and the girl, our older girls are doing that and love it.
Yeah, it's so fun. And they're the ones who got me to do it, like the kids. So then that's a whole nother whatever. But
yep. That's been awesome. So, and I think we're going to get to do more of it in the years to come.
Yeah, we want to do mission
Get
trips
older, and
together.
our kids are like begging me to go on my next trip, whenever that is, and so I'm looking forward to those opportunities down the line. One other thing I wanted to say, just in terms of like when we're in those tough places and struggling, and your mind can start going down like spiral.
Yeah.
You can like not your mind, our mind, anybody's mind can start to spiral on like just the negative, and you start playing out like,
this is what their intention was. They wanted,
all that. And I think we've had some of that. And then it's just like this choice, I think, within relationships at times where you just go, when you begin to just, like for me, if I'm in one of those places where I'm disgruntled and unsatisfied and whatever, the things that always normally will flip it around is when I just start like thanking God for you and like what I love about you and what I know to be true about you, or even to try and do something that like is a kindness towards you or to serve you in some way. And when I make that switch, it's amazing how fast God just then expands my affection for you in those times, as opposed to just the spiral thing that is like, because I think that's the enemy, just like pulling you down. And like, it's like, no, I'm going to like, YWAM used to call it walk in the opposite spirit. It's like, I'm going to turn and I'm going to walk. I don't feel like it, but I'm going to walk in this way, and my affection will follow that. Like once I start to do those actions and think this and pray and thank God, I think that's been true. And so that was one little. But
I think that's a perfect example too of fleshing out what it means to take every thought captive. Because if I start down one thought of, well, he's doing that because this, and if that's a negative thing, and if I don't take that thought captive and be like, okay, is that true? Is that actually who he is? But if I let that spiral, then it like just gets bad.
Yep. Through 15 years, the fears I had of commitment and just this one person for the rest of my life, and will it work in California as it has in Australia, and all those things and doubts and fears, I think I've learned that all of those could completely be true if I allowed my daily mind to continue to live in a place where you're always wondering what's on the other side. But what I found is through 15 years of marriage, what an incredible life God has given me, and faithful partner He's given me, and beautiful family. And I'm so thankful, I think, for our marriage, our relationship, our friendship, that I have you who just I trust, and who I enjoy spending time with, and I love adventuring with, and I love raising kids with. And she really is the best mom. Sorry, all moms, and that's the thing that everybody says, but she's really good. A lot of people tell her that too.
That's not true.
So like getting to just do life together, like those fears are just like, they're so, I don't know, the whole fear thing is just a thing that you just have to keep walking forward and go, God, today, trusting you. And in the process, we get to build something that's been fun and beautiful, and that I'm proud of. Like, I'm proud that you're my wife. I'm proud of our marriage. I'm proud of our family. And I wouldn't want it, any other way. And that doesn't mean that there aren't days that I don't think that.
Yeah, totally.
Because there's like challenges with marriage. There's challenges with kids. There's challenges just with work and life, and the world's hard. Yeah. But ultimately, I think we've been able to build something that's beautiful and what's that?
Sorry, finish, then I'll tell you.
Okay. And something that like I love being a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. I just thought of a funny story to tell when just thinking about like two people living together. First of all, let alone like all the other little people, but like two people who have an idea of how the dishwasher should be loaded. And I am the only one in my family who knows how it should be loaded. And that sucks. But we went to Costco with our girls, and we only had the two at the time. And they were probably like, I don't know, 2 and 4. I think it was before the twins were born, maybe.
Okay. I don't know this story. So
you do know.
Okay.
But he'll just get like, he's the peacemaker. He's your classic peacemaker. And so that's part of our conflict things too, is that I want you to fight with me more. I want you to say your thing. Don't just let me have my way, which doesn't happen all the time, but in our fights.
But I'm silently stubborn.
You're silently resenting me probably.
It's good.
But,
I'm fun.
You're fun? That's fun. But there'll be like the weirdest times when he'll just decide, no, I'm not going to give in.
Nice.
And so we went to Costco this one time. And this is when Costco had gigantic bears, like gigantic brown bears. And we don't live in a big house. We have 3 bedrooms for 6 people. Like we are all crammed in pretty tight.
Right.
But the girls wanted this bear. Of course they do. They're 2, they're 4. And Fun Dad puts the bear on
the cart,
whatever that thing is that moves all the food. And I was like, are you kidding me?
It was $30 for this
gigantic bear.
It was amazing.
Which was a bit of a sore spot in our marriage. But we've also come home with this like gigantic paella pan, which you use maybe once every 3 years. But he just had to have his way, so we have this gigantic paella pan.
I picked my spots.
And let me tell you what happened to that bear. We had that bear for probably 6 years.
Kids loved it.
Kids loved it. But I am the rat catcher in our house. That's me.
Right.
I dispose of the. Oh, is this not sure this is a stupid story.
Well, yeah, I don't know if a rat fell onto the bear and the bear went away. Right.
Well, that was anticlimactic, but yes.
It would get pitched out in the garage. I don't think everybody. It was frightening. Fell out of the rafters.
Okay. So,
in a trap.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Well, when you were saying that, I just thought of those times you put your foot down and we ended up with ginormous,
useless things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You live and you learn. Pick my moments. Gotta have fun too sometimes. I have to say yes sometimes.
Yeah, okay, but not when it's like 2 people's worth of space in our house.
Relationship advice.
I wasn't thinking relationships. I was just thinking that like life ebbs and flows. Relationships ebb and flow. Your relationship with God ebbs and flows. Being in a good spot with God is great for the times when you're maybe not so good. And I think, I don't know, I just want you to know that like doubts are normal. Doesn't mean that you're on a slippery slope down to wherever, but like just everything in life ebbs and flows. You're not always going to feel great. You're not always going to feel terrible. It's just, that's just like the beauty of
part of life.
Yeah, part of life. The hard
like
part.
The
beauty.
tides.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that choosing a partner is a really big deal. Like it's a huge decision, and to do it wisely and to look for the qualities and characteristics that like you really that are going to travel for the long haul when times get difficult.
Yeah.
When that this this person is going to love you through those times, is going to be humble, is going to be loyal and committed and fun. I think fun, and that
if
you
that's
enjoy.
Important to you.
If you enjoy, spending that time with, but also not to get paralyzed by trying for perfection, I think would be another piece, because nobody's ever going to be perfect. And so if your foundation with one another is pursuing God and loving one another, that God can bring all different types of people together and make it work and do life. And so, not to get paralyzed with imperfection.
And also the things that are important to you in this stage of your life, in young adulthood, if you will, are not going to be important to you later. Like part of like going through stages of life is that like the outside container of you is important to you for a phase of your life. But then for this another phase of your life, it's going to be about the things that are inside of the container. And so if you're only basing your decision upon the outside container, and if you're only putting all your effort into your own outside container, then like the inside container is going to be left wanting. And like at some point, what's on the outside is just not going to serve you for the later parts of your life. I don't know. It's just, it feels so weird to me to like get on social media and stuff and just see like selfies. I just don't get. Maybe it's because I'm old.
We're old now.
We're having old.
old talk. Get off my lawn talk.
Just maybe don't post so many pictures of yourself with your makeup perfect. And
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to. Yeah. Okay.
So.
Any other advice?
Love you. Happy 15th
Love you too.
anniversary.
Happy 15.